Hello everyone, we are here today at April's to watch episodes 602 and 603 of Pretty Little Liars. We couldn't watch last week because of some commitments that conflicted, so I unfollowed Pretty Little Liars on Instagram and Twitter so I wouldn't get any spoilers, and I've been avoiding social media and now we're going to watch them back to back. So it was hard to wait, but I'm really excited that we get to watch two at a time. Yes. And we are gonna discuss 602 after we watch that one, and then we'll watch 603. So here we go. Can't wait. True to tradition, we are eating French fries. It's Pretty Little Liars and French fries night. We're drinking some water to get ready for drinking wine, baby. Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Donut, what did you think of the episode, huh? What did you think?
You like it? I think Andrew's A. Oh, okay. You don't like that, huh?
Okay, so we just watched the second episode of season 6. Interesting episode, not a whole lot surprising. They found Andrew, and for some reason the girls are all like totally convinced that it was him, which, I mean, I don't know. You would think at this point they would be a little bit wiser about like immediately jumping to conclusions about who A is, because they've been wrong like, I don't know, 78 times already. Give or take a couple. I'm kind of surprised at that. I think it's a little naive. I would have thought that they would be more on the page where we're at, which is that he clearly was involved somehow, but like he's not the mastermind behind the whole thing. That's what I'm thinking right now. That like, you know, obviously he was there, they found him there, and they said that stuff was at his uncle's farm, so that was a connection to him, and then they found like some manifesto or something about how the girls represented the feminization of society or something. Like, that's a little far-fetched for me. Like, I think that they're probably mirroring that that's happened in the news some recently. That kid who shot up that school wrote some creepy manifesto like that, but I think that's a little bit of a stretch here, and I think it's pretty clear that it's a setup. A has planted many things before, and I'm gonna go ahead and bet money that this is one of those things. Oh, and then that scene at the beginning where Toby finds Andrew in the woods. He's playing some major bad cop there. What did he say to that guy?
Just give me 5 minutes alone with him.
Yeah. Oh my god, too much. And then this guy was like, no man, we gotta do our jobs. And I'm like, cool. That's like how the Rosewood cops start out. Give him like a couple episodes and he'll be just as crooked as everybody else. We see Emily trying on her dad's camo jacket, and April and I were both immediately like, is this foreshadowing? Like, are we going to see a time-jumped Emily who's now some officer in the military? Excuse me. It wouldn't surprise me. I could see it. I don't know if they'll do that, but that was some pretty strong imagery there. It's starting now? Okay, and then we had that scene with Allison and Toby in front of the police station that was so painfully awkward that I was like literally cringing sitting here on the couch. I don't quite understand why Toby and Allie are like enemies. Do you have any insight into that?
No, that was the weirdest thing. It almost seemed like maybe Toby knew something about Allison that we don't, or Allison knew something about Toby that we don't. I don't know. It was like very strange. Like one of them was involved in something and we don't know about it yet. I don't know. It was like really
so
weird.
I hope they explain that, because that was either like, well, it kind of goes without saying that that was bad acting, but that was just like beyond bad if that doesn't lead to something. Like, why was it so weird? Another question, where's Mrs. Marin getting all this interior decorating money? I'm not aware of her currently having a job.
True that.
maybe I'm forgetting something, but like I'm pretty sure she stopped working for the De Laurentises when Jessica died, and I don't know what's happened since then. So I mean, good for her. Maybe she's like doing a little something on the side. I don't know, but she is a good mom. I love Mrs. Marion. Next, hashtag Aria's little lie. Whoa, girl, that was some serious. That was not a little lie. That was big, and it was real bad.
I'm pretty sure no one believed it, too.
I'm pretty sure that was like the most blatantly terrible lying, which is saying a lot. I said to April while we were watching it, I have to remind myself sometimes that they're still actually in high school and that they're only 17 years old, and like high schoolers are irrational and they're, you know, it's just hard to like not think of them as 25-year-olds, which they are in real life, and be like, why are you making such bad decisions right now? But it's like, oh, because everybody makes bad decisions in high school. It's just like hard for me to keep that in perspective sometimes. But then there was a scene where Spencer and Toby were sitting in front of the truck, and Toby was like, the van was somewhere that could get traced back to Andrew, and all the writing seems like really obvious, and I'm right there with you, Toby. I think that it's way too obvious. I think it's definitely a setup, and I don't know why they're not taking that a little bit more seriously. I mean, I'm guessing they just want to like find somebody and pin it on them, but I think Toby's onto something. A is for arrogance. What is A for? That's what, when Spencer said that, that's what it made me think of. Like, is it anonymous? Originally, like in the very beginning, when we thought in like the pilot that maybe A was Allison, I thought that A was supposed to stand for Allison. But I wonder where A came from. Any thoughts on that one, April?
I'm not sure either. I hope that's something we figure out. I hope it's not just something that was totally random.
Yeah.
If it has a meaning, that would be really cool.
I hope so. I mean, I assume it's just anonymous, but I think it would be cool if we find out that there was something more than just that. Oh man, Allison and Lorenzo. Ugh. Boy. We'll
Finally,
see what happens.
Someone has a boyfriend older than Ezra.
Oh god, he's so old. And he's a cop. Like, really? Do we need more of these girls dating cops?
We don't.
And also, Allie was, like, dating Holbrook, right? So, like, maybe she's just got a thing for older cops?
Maybe.
I don't know, but, like, do we really need to introduce more unnecessary romantic relationships to complicate things into this show? I don't think so, but,
no.
You know. And that really awkward scene in front of the church, I'm not sure what was going on with that. There was some, like, veiled religious something or other happening that I didn't quite understand. Oh, girl, let's talk about Aria's sneakers with that dress.
Oh, my God.
Okay, I actually liked that dress. Like, she's a crazy dresser. Like, it worked for her. I'm down with the dress. Those sneakers with a different outfit, like, I can get behind, but together...
With, like, sweatpants in gym class, maybe.
Right.
Like, they show her from the waist up, and you're like, oh, okay, Aria's, like, kind of, you know, making sense now with her fashion. And then the camera pans back, and we're both like, is she wearing sneakers? It was a little bit ridiculous. It was almost like they thought they were going to film the scene from the waist up, and then halfway through they were like, oh no, we got to pan back on this. And Aria was like, shit, guys, I'm just wearing my sneakers.
Oh, that's so funny. She's just so crazy. Oh, and then when she walks out of the room and the camera like pans back and the medication is in the corner, I was like, oh god, of course.
Yeah.
The second they did that, I was like, Spencer... She's up to no good. And then that comment that Aria's mom made, like, Aria, you're very smart, but you're also very wise. I'm sorry, maybe I'm just dense, but, like, I don't have the slightest idea what that means.
No, not at all.
And Aria's like, oh, yeah, you're right, Mom.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's right.
What does that even mean? Yeah, I don't know. And then April noticed that there were pictures missing in the photo album next to the pictures of the little boys that Allie was looking at. So it's looking like, based on the little clip that we saw for next week's episode, that they're going to address that. So I'm hoping that we'll find out more about that. It's really heartbreaking that they like had to torture each other. Oh my god, I can't even imagine how traumatic that would be. And the flashbacks are pretty bad. But for kids who just experienced a month's worth of torture and now have PTSD, they seem to be doing pretty well. One thing though, I mean, Mrs. Marin and Caleb were making some, like, serious eyes at each other. I feel like in an alternate, like, HBO version of Pretty Little Liars, there would be some mama boyfriend hanky-panky happening.
Well, how awkward would it be if you were, like, laying with your boyfriend in bed and your mom just came in and sat next to you on the floor and just stared?
I mean, under the circumstances, I get that she, like, wants to be close to Hannah, but it was, like, so awkward.
It's like, what's about to happen?
I know. Oh, it's really weird. But yeah, I liked the episode. I'm looking forward to the next one. I just love Norman Buckley. I think that he's a great director, and just reading some of what he said and following him on Instagram, I love that he puts homages to old movies and cool stuff in there, and I've started kind of watching for that a little bit when I watch his episodes, and I like how he visually sets things. Yeah, anything else you want to add, April, that I didn't cover?
I thought it was interesting. I wasn't prepared for the episode to be focused on their sort of PTSD, and also their relationships with each other have kind of changed, at least for now. Like, they have sort of been, I guess, avoiding each other, and, you know, even who was it? Hannah said she couldn't even look her friends in the eye. It's like, I didn't really think about that, but of course, I guess it would be hard for them to spend time together after everything they had to do to each other. So that was kind of an interesting. I hope that doesn't carry on through too many more episodes, because, you know, obviously we like to see the girls working together. So hopefully they get over that, but that was a little bit weird to watch, I think. Yeah. And I just feel like when they work together and when they sleuth together, especially when Mona's involved, they, like, accomplish stuff. So to have the episode start off with the very first scene, them being like, it's definitely Andrew. I'm like, no, like, if you put your heads together, like, you could figure it out. That also begs the question, hashtag where's Mona? Seriously, we want her back. Mona is the bomb. And, like, when I think about if Spencer and Mona, like, sat down together and, like, really thought about stuff, like, the shit that they could figure out would be, like, I mean, they could take over the world. Right. So I really hope Mona's back soon, because I feel like she could be a really integral piece of figuring all this out. Yeah. And she went through so much shit. Oh, I just feel so bad for her. Like, I really hope that the girls include her and are not a bitch to her, because, like, she deserves it. She's been through so much. And she really has been loyal to them now. So, yeah, we hope she's back. I'm not crazy about this actress who plays Sarah. No, not at all. I don't know if it's just the character or the writing or, like, the actress. I can't quite figure it out, but, like, I'm not crazy about it so far. But we'll see where it goes. All right, we're going to watch 603 now. Can't wait, and we'll talk after. Yay. Say yay, Donut. Yay, Donut! Yay! Yay, 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 pretty. Alright, so we just watched 603. It was a really good episode. I just am loving that the storyline has had to really accelerate so they can tell this whole Charles story, and so it doesn't feel like there's filler episodes so far in this episode. I feel like they pack a lot in, and I like that. A couple of things that I forgot to say when we were talking about 602 was that this kind of goes back to the whole teenager naivete thing, but when they started the episode, they said, we can't tell the police about Charles. And I know that we keep getting hung up on this involving the police thing, and, like, they can't because they're too far in. But there's just, like, that logical piece of me that I just can't quiet, that every time they're like, no, don't tell the police, I'm like, oh my god, like, we just have to tell the police something eventually. They can't do their jobs if they don't know anything. And, like, yes, I know that every time they go to the cops, it gets, like, turned back around on them, and, like, it ends up backfiring, but it's like, I just have this urge to be like, just fucking tell the cops something! I just can't get over that. Oh, and then another thing from 602 was when, first of all, Mr. De Laurentiis is just, like, the grumpiest faced person I've ever seen. He never looks happy ever. Like, somebody needs to give that dude a hug. But then when he was like, there's no Charles De Laurentiis, it was like, duh, there's a Charles De Laurentiis. Like, it was so obvious that he was, like,
just not having it. And then, segue, we learn a little bit more about Charles in this episode. So, starts off with Aria was saying, it has to be Andrew, like he has to be Charles, and you can tell that she just wants it too badly. And really, I think if they stop to think about it, they would realize that it just doesn't really make sense for it to be him, and then later on in the episode, they do sort of kind of piece that together. But she says it has to be Charles because, like, we can't be back to where we started. But they wouldn't be back to where they started because now they know they have a name, Charles. They have these clues. If they thought about what they saw down there, they really could put more information together. And I totally understand that they just want an answer, and so they're trying to make stuff fit. But saying that they're back where they started, I just feel like is not true because they know so much more now than they did before. Oh. Bring Mona back. What petition do I have to sign? Or who do I need to tweet at to get Mona back? Because, girl, it's just not the same without her.
Was Janelle doing something? Because I feel like the whole, oh, Mona's mom took her away to Saratoga, like that seemed like a little bit like, oh, the actress is busy kind of thing.
Maybe, but like, I don't remember her filming anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she did Dancing with the Stars, but that was like a long time ago. That's when Mona was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, she does like theater in LA, but like, I don't think she's been filming anything that I'm aware of. I don't know why they wouldn't have her back. I really hope that she comes back. Oh, it was just funny when Emily was like, oh, I've just got this burner phone that my friend gave me. And we're like, that's the sketchiest sounding thing I've ever heard. But then, of course, we find out it's just Caleb. Oh, and then... So when Sarah Harvey is like, hey, is it cool if I just like chill at your house while you go to school? And Emily's like, yeah, no problem. I'm like, dude, have a little bit of stranger danger. Like, hello? Why would you let somebody that you don't know just chill in your house? Yes, I understand that Sarah has like been through a really shitty situation, and so like Emily can identify with her, but like, girl.
Also, this girl has just been kidnapped and missing for 2 years, and no one is concerned that she's, like, escaped from the hospital. No one's looking for her.
No.
I get that she has a weird family relationship, but, like, she just disappeared after she was just found, and nobody cares to know where she is. And Emily's mom is okay with her just, like, hanging out at the house.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we figure out that her home situation is pretty weird, and it sounds like her mom is really terrible. But, like, if my daughter had just been kidnapped and was gone for 3 weeks and then came back home and there was another girl who was just like, hey, I'm just going to, like, hang out at your house instead of going home, I would be like, no, you have to go home. Your parents want to know where you are. And I don't understand why the police aren't, like, interrogating her nonstop to try to figure out what happened, who did it, where she was. Like, yeah, that doesn't jive with me. I just can't even figure that one out. Again, Emily rocking some pretty sweet camo. She's working that hard. I wonder if Sarah Harvey's family situation is going to factor into why she's an important piece of this story now, because they're really pushing that she's got like a bad home life and her mom sounds like a monster. Do you remember what you were saying about that?
She's there because she was the filler, you know, this person kidnapped who they thought was Allie or whatever. It didn't end up being Allie. Sarah Harvey was this filler person. So if that's all she was, if that's all her character was, like, why now bring her in and make her a character on the show unless she relates in some other way? Right.
So, like, if she was kidnapped on Labor Day because Charles wanted somebody to, like, be Allison, then... why is she now being integrated into the storyline unless she has, like, more significance? Yeah. So I'm interested to see where that goes, and if there was some significance to her being taken, or if it was just the opportunity showed up and Charles was like, all right, here's a blonde girl, I guess I'll take her. Just for the record, I would like to state, Ezra, I am so over Ezra.
Are you more over Ezra or more over Toby? I'm more over Toby, I think.
Okay, I feel like Toby is so comical at this point to me that, like, I think that his character is totally ridiculous, and I'm sorry, but the acting is just, like, totally ridiculous. But I don't know. Ever since the whole, like, Ezra might be a thing, and then it, like, turned out that he knew about all this shit that was going on, and he just, like, let it happen, and then now we're just supposed to pretend like that was okay, and he's, like, 10 years older than them. I just can't. I'm so over him. And I feel like he doesn't really serve that much purpose in the story anymore. He's not a teacher, so he's just this, like, awkward older dude who, like, hangs around with teenagers, and I'm like, get a life, man. And I get that his life is Aria and their OTP, blah, 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 blah. But I just, like, I'm over it.
Well, maybe he can hang out with Lorenzo now, though.
Maybe, I mean, he needs friends his own age. Like, does he not have any friends? What happened to that friend from the first season, Hardy, who he played darts with Aria? That dude was probably like, dude, you're banging teenagers, I'm out. And now he doesn't have any friends. So, I don't know. I guess I just don't understand what purpose he serves in the story at this point. Other than just they know that if they get rid of him, Ezra fans will just lose their minds. And then with Toby, I mean, I guess you could make the same argument for him. Like, he did trick Spencer into thinking he was dead, and she, like, went into a mental hospital because of him, and then it was kind of like, oh, all's forgiven. It's like, no, that was not an okay thing to do. But for some reason, like, he's just so goofy, I guess, and at least he's kind of close to her age that it doesn't bother me quite as much. Spencer? Oh, don't. Spencer and Allison certainly fight like sisters. They've alluded to this, but, like, Spencer and Allison, out of all of the girls way back then, definitely had the most complicated relationship, and I think that that's true. I think it was kind of like a power struggle between them, because they're both really strong personalities, and you could see that in this episode when they had that fight. But I think that it was sweet that at the end they had that scene where they were, like, digging in the flowers, where they kind of just had, like, a nice, like, teenage moment where they're, like, talking about a crush. Granted, he's, like, way older, but
can we talk about the button
what do you
jar
expect?
while we're talking about the flowers?
Oh yeah, the button jar. Like, Aria turns off the light and she's like, the button jars. Oh, Aria.
And then can you imagine, like, 20 years ago or whatever, Mr. and Mrs. De Laurentiis, like, rolling up this, like, okay, we gotta put it over here, and they roll up this picture and then they put it in this jar and fill it with buttons. Like, where'd they get all the buttons?
I don't know. I like, maybe in her spare time of being a real estate agent or whatever she did, Mrs. D also was, like, a seamstress, because it said, like, hem 4 pants on the chalkboard.
Oh, okay.
So girlfriend had some hobbies, apparently. That could be, like, an Aria's a clue. I mean, there were some of those in this episode. I'm starting to think that Aria being a is probably not it, although it is a fun way to watch the show, and there's so many clues that I don't know if they were just messing with us the whole time.
Well, she was the one who was, like, most adamant about Andrew. Like,
Exactly.
she was 100% like, no, we gotta get him.
Yeah.
What do I have to do? I'll go talk to the police. It's like,
Totally.
whoa, Aria, like, nobody else
Yeah.
is as confident as you are.
Yeah, and, I mean, part of that might have just been that she was embarrassed, because she was making out with this dude, like,
That's
a week
true.
before, so
Yeah.
she's probably like, oh shit, this is my fault. Yeah, there was some pretty strong Aria is a stuff in this episode. She was like, oh yeah, I remember, I hid it in the buttons.
Yeah.
Or, like, a lot of people have talked about mirrors and how that's some analogy for Aria having multiple personalities. And
What about the doll she kept taking pictures of?
so, like
what
there's
was
that scene at the end where she's holding the camera, looking in the mirror, and then she turns around and pivots to this doll that we, like, focused on earlier in the episode as well. So I'm really curious to see what that is going to be a clue for. I don't get the connection yet, but I'm sure it'll come back, because they really made a point of, like, making us focus in on that doll. Another thing that I'm really impressed with is at the beginning of the show, and rightfully so, I hated Allison. And I know that some people like her and, like, you do you, but I just thought she was hideous, and I didn't understand why these girls felt so loyal to her. She was so mean to everybody. She was such a manipulative person that I just, like, didn't understand the appeal. And I just thought she was the worst. And I find myself feeling so sympathetic to her now. She's been through a lot, and like her life is a lot more complicated than it originally seemed. And we don't really know what happened in those 2 years that she was gone. And she's got a lot of stuff on her conscience. Like a lot of terrible stuff has happened to other people because of her and because of things that she's done. And I mean, I just give props to the writers for really bringing out that side of her and pretty quickly churning it from being like, I hate this person, she's so terrible, to like, I see that she's a human and she's flawed and I feel bad for her. Not for everything, but I sympathize with her. And I think that that's what they're going to try to do with Charles, because I mean, this person is so terrible, but we keep getting this drilled into us, this Charles has a soul thing, that I think they're going to try to make us understand why it happened and make them seem human. And like, I don't know, maybe they'll be able to. I'm not fully buying it because, you know.
Well, I think also now that we know that at the end of the episode, it kind of came out that none of them actually hurt each other like we thought they were doing.
Yes.
None of them actually physically hurt each other.
Yes.
I thought that when we did think that that's what was going on, it was kind of this whole new layer. I don't feel like Charles has ever been like trying to physically harm the girls.
Yeah.
And so
because he's had so many opportunities and never taken them.
So when we were seeing those flashbacks, I was like, oh, this is like a whole new level. He's like really being like very menacing at this point.
Yeah.
And so now that we know that's not really what happened, it just adds more to that, like, well, is he really, what would he have done if he had kept them in there forever, you know?
Yeah. That's an interesting way of looking at it. I thought it was funny when Aria was like, but Andrew, like, who is he? And we're like sitting on the couch being like, a 27-year-old bodybuilder. Duh.
Seriously.
Like, clearly not in high school. Look at that guy. If that guy showed up at my high school and was like, I'm 17, I'd be like, fuck off. Are you like like an undercover cop or something?
Yeah.
Like, no way. Oh, and then also I love how like therapy and, oh, that's what the bros who watch PLL call her, how Dr. Sullivan just like shows up at the high school because she's like consulting, and then she has like a therapy session with Hannah in an open classroom. Like, that happens. I don't think it's a coincidence that she's back. I think she's gonna tie in somehow. A lot of people have theorized like all throughout that she was something more integral to the storyline. I don't know. I mean, this is an opportune time for them to go to therapy, so maybe that's why she's back, but I don't think we've seen the last of her. Like, I think she's gonna have something to do with this. Oh, so the hospital just says to Ezra, sorry, we can't give you medical information, but we are going to reveal to you that this dude that you're asking about when you're badly impersonating a police officer is adopted.
Like, basically
How
all
would
you
the
have to
hospital
do,
know that?
yeah, all you have to do to convince the hospital you're a police officer is just say, hi, this is
Both of your
Detective,
police officers.
yeah, this is Detective Melvin. Oh, all right.
Basically everything Ezra was asking for, the police should have known, and the only information the hospital provided is something the hospital wouldn't have known. And also, like, whose birth date gets sealed by an adoption record? I don't think that's how that works, but, you know. This Ali Lorenzo situation is, I mean, it's par for the course at this point with PLL. Like, obviously, they're going to go for, like, 30-year-old dudes. That's, like, just what they do. But I love how she half-kicked a soccer ball with heels on, and he's like, girl, you got moves. And I'm like...
And then he looked her up and down.
I'm like, what moves? She, like, barely kicked a soccer ball. Like, what's going on? So he's like, oh, she's Allison De Laurentiis. So this guy knows a little bit of the history of her. What person in their right mind would ask a 17-year-old girl who has just gotten out of jail, who was there for potentially murdering another girl, and who was like a manipulative, terrible friend for years, and would see that person and be like, she would be a good youth soccer coach? Duh. Bad idea. Again, I'm softening on Allison, but like, putting her in charge of a group of little girls has red flag written all over it. And then I love how Toby's just sipping
like
coffee,
watching from the window. Yeah, like,
what are you doing, Toby? They kind of talked a little bit later in the episode about like, you know, I guess he just feels protective of Spencer and he thinks that Allison's a liar, which like, fair and fair. But like, Why so shady, Toby? Why do you hate Allison so much? Get on my train, Toby. Do you have any theories, April, about how the Andrew adoption thing is going to play into the storyline, or why they brought that in? What are your thoughts?
I don't know on that, because I think, again, we talked about the fact that we don't think Andrew is Charles.
Right.
And we talked about how we think that the adoption thing might be a red herring. I think at this point, I think that may be it. It's like he's adopted, but so what? That doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Right.
I feel like that may be it. I mean, unless the adoption thing factors in some other way, and then it's just like everything's getting way too convoluted.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just to throw us off at this point.
Okay. I do too. But it's funny because I feel like in previous seasons, they would have let that hang for like an episode or two, making us think like, oh, well, maybe Andrew is the new identity of Charles after Charles is adopted. But like, they have to move so quickly this half season that it's like, what, we thought that for like 10 minutes. And then they're like, oh, here's what Andrew was really doing. So like, it's probably not him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was just like a piece for us to be like, oh my gosh. But I don't think that that's actually going to turn into anything important. I thought it was weird when Toby and Spencer were kind of like arguing about Allison, and Toby was like, Allison didn't save you because she was being nice. She saved you because she needs you and Mona alive. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, why does she need them? Why?
And why didn't Spencer be like, wait, what?
Yeah. There's just like, I mean, again, this is me being too critical of a TV show, and I just need to like love it for what it is, which I do. I love this show very, very, very much. But there's just so many times when it's like a little bit more explanation would clear up so many things. It's like somebody just being like, wait, what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
Or like, can you explain yourself a little bit more? But of course, what fun would that be? Oh gosh, when Emily was like, I have to take care of Sarah. It's like, no girl, you don't. Like, I get that you feel bad. I understand that. And like, Emily's the nurturer and she loves her friends, but like, homegirl is seriously got some stuff going on.
Yeah,
and,
she's like a
you
creep.
You can't fix that.
Yeah.
Like, she needs to be talking to therapists, not like having slumber parties at your house. So like, no, you don't need to take care of her. Somebody professional needs to take care of her. Boy. Spencer and Jason are technically brother and sister. Obviously has been a big storyline throughout the entire show. But I don't really like when Spencer says to Allison, we're both his sister. He's my brother too. It's like, yeah, technically blood related, he's your brother, but like, Allison grew up with him. They are siblings, like they were in a family together. You just found out like a year ago that your dad like had an affair and he's technically your brother. Like, I understand that means that she has feelings for him apart from just like being the neighbor, and that's fine. But I think it's kind of unfair to say that to Allie, because it's like, not really though. And like, her relationship with Allison is complicated enough. It's like, you don't need to be like throwing stuff in her face. When Jason said Charles isn't real, we were both like, oh my god, imaginary friend. And of course, then we get hashtag imaginary friend. I think that's brilliant. And like, there were some theories that I read that had said like, Charles is dead or Charles isn't really real. And I was trying to figure out how it would be possible for Charles to like somehow be a part of the story.
He is a real person. Don't we think he's the boy in the photo, right?
Yes. I do think that Charles is a real person. And I think that Mr. De Laurentiis probably told Jason that Charles had to go away and then he disappeared, and then since then they've just told him so many times like, oh, it was your imaginary friend, that's what Jason thinks now.
Right. It also explains when we first found out about Charles and saw the home movies and everyone was theorizing like maybe it's his brother or whatever. Yeah. But then it was like, well, wait a minute. If Jason had a brother, wouldn't he know about him? Why would he not talk about his brother? It's like, this explains
That's what I mean.
You know, regardless, it's his brother, it's his friend, it's his cousin, whatever. This explains why he never talked about it. He was led to believe that this was an imaginary friend he had.
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say. I feel like it's a really clever way to make the story plausible, that Charles was there and then wasn't there because that didn't make sense before. And I like that this is how they're doing it, because I think it's like, oh, of course little kids have imaginary friends, and then they do go away. When they got that video of the black glove with the knife in Emily's bedroom, oh my God, I just could not believe it. That Charles, man, he's fucking wily. Like, he's everywhere still. It's crazy. And then I'm just like picturing like Dr. Sullivan coming out of her office and the like waiting room is empty and she's like, are you guys kidding me? Like, really? Again?
Well, Hannah's mom slipped in the shower, so they all had to go.
And they think it was the soap.
It was the soap, yeah.
I mean, come on. Sarah comes out of the shower when they go home to like check on her, and Emily like gives her this big hug. I'm like, relax, girl. You've got 4 friends already. One thing that's just part of the whole you just have to suspend disbelief piece of Rosewood and this whole storyline, the time passing in super slow motion, whatever, is that if this had happened in the real world, everybody in the country would know who these girls are. Like, their friends keep disappearing. People keep getting murdered. Like, they get kidnapped. I mean, everybody would know this story. And people would cross the street when they see them coming. The coffee shop would empty when they would go in there. So I loved that at the end of the episode when they run into Andrew on the sidewalk, he was like, other cities have toxic dumps. Rosewood has you. And I was like, sick burn, Andrew. But it's true. It's like disaster follows them everywhere. And in any normal situation, everybody around them would be like, I'm out. I don't want to be near these girls. Good observation, Andrew. That's the point I'm trying to make. Hashtag bitter Andrew. I think bitter's an understatement.
Their hashtags these past couple episodes have been pretty, yeah.
Do you think that Andrew was telling the truth when he said that he was just trying to help them?
Yeah, I could believe that.
So what was shooting arrows at them at the Pathfinder camp, and then Andrew turned out to be like a Pathfinder scout or whatever? Do you think that that was Charles trying to make it look like it was Andrew?
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I don't think Andrew is working with Charles. I don't know. Maybe it was just like really good acting, but I felt like when he came out and he was like so pissed at the girls for having him in there, it convinced me. I don't know. I felt like he was there, so we believed.
So are we supposed to believe that they found him in the woods near where the girls were because he had also, like, just coincidentally at the same time gotten close to where they were?
That's kind of what I was thinking. When did they find him?
I guess they didn't really tell us that, but I feel like it's only the next day or a day later, so they must have found him the day they found the girls.
Yeah.
Or maybe, like, he was looking for them, kind of trying to go under the radar. And it's possible he followed the police, or like he followed Toby and Caleb to the park, and so he was there for that reason.
I don't know. I don't really think he's anyone, but then there is the whole Campbell Farm thing, and I don't know if that was to throw us off too. I mean, that's the farm that home video was taken at when the boys were little.
Right.
Or maybe he is involved, whether it be in a good way or a bad way.
I think that Charles knew that home video was a tie to Campbell Farms and was like, if I set up a lair at Campbell Farm, they're going to think it was him. And so it just worked into the whole like setup plot line. There's 2 pieces that I don't understand about it. One is I still want to know why he was listening in on the phone call between Veronica and Melissa. I think that's shady. That's like going beyond trying to help Aria.
Yeah.
And number 2, I want to know like why he was so committed to finding Aria and being the hero. You barely dated this girl. Like, why are you so invested in it?
There's definitely something weird about him.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll be interested to see how they tie that up, but I get it now, and I'm okay with that being the end of his storyline if it is.
Donut's having a bad dream.
Oh, it's okay, baby. It's okay.
He's dreaming about A.
Yeah, A's scary.
It's okay, Donut.
I've actually never had a nightmare about like A or PLL or anything. Have you?
Me neither.
I after Andrew, like, gets mad at them and calls them a toxic dump and walks away, and they're just like, well, I guess it was a setup. What now? And you're like, let's process this a little bit. Like, what can we learn from this situation, girls?
Someone needs to just call Mona, okay?
Yeah, seriously. She would be like, are you dumb bitches kidding me?
Right.
Oh, and then we find out that they were flipping these switches and hearing these screams and assuming that it meant that they were hurting each other, which is terribly traumatic. But then we find out that they weren't, thank God. And they make the observation that Charles just wanted them to know that they could get to the place where they would hurt each other. And it does seem like his main game is like psychological warfare with them, because like we said, he hasn't really physically hurt them that much, but he really has broken them down, and turning them against each other is kind of like the final straw, because their biggest strength throughout this entire situation has been that they've been so united. And so getting them to the point where they could hurt each other is like shitty, and it's sad, and it's painful for them, I'm sure, and none of them want to like admit that they would do that. But like when faced with a situation like that, you never really know what you're capable of. Oh my God. And then when Emily gets home and Sarah Harvey's just like sitting in the dark on her window seat, I'm like, turn on a light,
She's
girl.
She's like, what's wrong? You don't like it?
It's so creepy. But thank God the terrible wig is gone and the short hair. But I'm like, dude, go home. I'm over it. I mean, I want to know how she ties in, but no new characters.
Seriously.
I just want to like figure out what's going on with the people that we already care about. Like, I don't need any distractions. I really liked that line that Spencer said at the end when she was talking to her mom, where Veronica says, Andrew told the police that you guys were like tricking him into helping you. Oh, we should talk about that too. But Veronica says, is that true? And Spencer says, well, it's made up of facts, but that doesn't make it true. I feel like that's such a perfect kind of way to talk about PLL. Because it's like so many things happen that in certain lights look one way, but like were done for totally different reasons. It's just so much more complicated than that. But going back to what Andrew said, I don't understand where he gets off saying that. I mean, I guess Spencer kind of like tricked him into playing strip poker or whatever, but like,
what was he doing for that? Like I don't understand.
Nobody
that.
made you do that. Like,
but
what are you talking about, tricked you?
Yeah.
I guess if I was, like, a wounded high school boy who, like, tried to, like, mac on a bunch of girls and none of them were, like, that into it, then I would maybe, like, be a little resentful. I would be a little #bitter. And so I guess he could, like, make it sound like that's what it was, but that's a stretch. Nobody tricked you into doing anything. You were a willing participant in that. You were like going hard for Aria. She did not trick you into anything. So, I mean, I guess maybe I can see how he could twist it that way, but like that's not a fair way to represent what actually happened. And then when Spencer says, I was hoping that when we got home everything would be okay, but we're never gonna have a happy ending, and I was like, girl, we got 6 seasons to prove that just because one chapter closes does not mean that the story's over. There's just always so much more, and it's like so sad that after all this, they're jaded in certain ways, but they're still so naive and like just so hopeful. I mean, that's good that they're hopeful. I don't want them to be like, fuck it, like my life is terrible, like there's just no hope. But I don't know, it is sad. And then the closing scene with Mr. De Laurentiis and Jason and Allison, Mr. D is just ranting and says like what Jason put their family through or whatever he says. I'm like, are we just talking about that Jason was drunk and high for like 7 years straight? Like, is that what it was? Because that's kind of like the least of your worries. Like, there's a lot of shit going on, and that doesn't seem to have caused nearly as much trouble as a lot of other stuff did. So I don't understand like why he has such a chip on his shoulder for Jason. I mean, maybe it's the fact that Jason's not his biological son, and so he has some complicated feelings towards him. I just don't understand all these, like, allusions to what Jason did. To my understanding, he didn't really do anything, unless I'm forgetting something. And then, of course, I love how, like, Mr. De Laurentiis is finally going to tell them who Charles is, but we're outside the window, so we can't hear, and then we pan back, and Charles is there! Outside the window! It's crazy! So much happened in this episode. I liked it.
I felt like in the end, maybe this is me reading too much into it, but when we are watching Mr. De Laurentiis explain who Charles is, I mean, that's what we're assuming he's doing.
Right.
I feel like as soon as he starts talking, like he's only said a few words before Allison kind of like turns to the window. So Jason's I feel like, you know, it must have been something so like it must have been like Charles is your brother, Charles, you know, like it wouldn't have been like, well, he was this friend Jason had, you know.
And they're like, what?
So so I feel like whatever it is, it's bigger than just like he was Jason's friend when he was little, and then he, you know. So
I agree. And then from the like next week on PLL, do you remember? Did they say who Charles is? Oh, they say.
They say he's dead. Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe that?
I don't know. We kind of talked about it could very well be that he's dead. It could be that Mr. De Laurentiis does think he's dead. Yeah. Or it could be that Mr. De Laurentiis knows he's not dead, but he wants everyone to forget about trying to figure out who he is. I mean, it could be. I'm not really sure yet.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, man, I'm so digging this show. I mean, I've always loved the show, but it's just like I love that there's so much to talk about.
I know.
And you can just like endlessly theorize, and I'm not like disappointed when my theories don't come true. Like I just love that it like makes me think, and that, like I can talk to my friends about it. And it is interesting though, when the episode first came on and you were like, I can barely see it, it's so dark. It did make me think about how the show has changed so much, and it's like for a teen show, it's really dark.
Yeah.
And actually physically really dark, and just like the subject matter is like so intense now. And if you had told me when I first started watching it where it was going to be now, I would be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Totally.
But since we're like so deep in and we're so invested, like I'm all in, baby. I can't wait to find out more. But yeah, even just the visual imagery, like, was so much more vivid and colorful at the beginning. Like, and yeah, it's not like their lives were easy at the beginning, but Mona as A was like small potatoes compared to where we are now.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really cool how they've kind of reflected that shift in every aspect of the show, including like lighting and set design and all that stuff. And I love that this teen show has so many more layers to it than that like 28-year-old people like us can appreciate it and enjoy it just as much as the 13-year-olds who watch it. So that's it for this week. Really enjoyed the episodes, and we'll watch next week and talk about that one. Any last words, April?
Any last words, Donut?
What do you think, buddy?
Oh,
you excited?
Oh, yeah. Donut, say bye-bye. Oh.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. We hope you liked the video. Leave a comment with your theories or any thoughts on our theories. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe for new videos every week.
Hashtag Mr. Biscuit.
Who's Mr. Biscuit? That's who A is, guys.
Hopefully.
Yep.